Right. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. And it's one that I have to remind myself that when I get up in the morning to make sure that before I even get into prayer, and that and every morning I start with prayer for direction and guidance and and wisdom. And sometimes I doubt my wisdom in many instances, and so I have to fall back and hope that I make the right decisions. And those decisions are made with a lot of people giving and providing input, which I know that's not always understood. And it's also with made, there's the many questions and counter responses, and it becomes somewhat overwhelming. But the thing that we have to keep our focus on, there are over 19,000 students, youngsters, that depend on us. And it's more than just about education and instruction being provided, ladies and gentlemen. For many kids, it's the routine, the relationships that are being built, the opportunities that that we are able to provide, and it's a whole myriad of things. And by the time we start back to school, there will be almost 6 months that our children have not had these opportunities. I never thought I would hear the day that teenagers would send emails begging for school to start. Just do it, Dr. Wright. Just step out there. And that's coming from kids, and I appreciate that more than you'll ever know. Many of you all know, and I'm going to take you back something that back in March, I reminded the public that there's going to be phases that we're all going to go through, and it's the part of the human nature, and I liken it to the stages or phases of grief. But we experienced something that the rest of the state did not experience. And everything, as far as we know it, particularly in the school business, ended on March the 3rd. Now, that's not saying there wasn't tornado damage elsewhere, but we were the only school district that lost 2 schools. And so everything changed from that point. And even though we knew there was a pandemic, we had no idea of what was awaiting us within 2 weeks. And so I remind people that, with that, there was so much confusion that people are going to go through that grief stage as far as the disbelief, just sort of trying to get their bearings of what they need to do. And then the anger sits in. By the time we go into the pandemic, we've already forgotten that there's been a tornado that's just wreaked havoc on everything. And we are with families that are just, much of their anger is directed at the school system. I understand it. I either get school started, I can't go back to work, I can't earn a livelihood, to these other group. And I understand that too, as far as, we can't take the risk. How can you give us 100% assurance that my child will not get sick if I return them to school? I can't give 100% assurance or reassurance on anything, because that's just the nature of human beings. I can't give those reassurance. But what I can do, as far as what we've learned and what we have to take into consideration as far as looking at the benefit versus the risk. And, and I've had parents, because I've used that word, that you would actually put that kind of, portrayal out there when you're talking about children and their lives. Well, no matter what words I use, folks, I have people debating my choice of words, how I present them, how I present myself. And I have to say my skin is getting thicker, and it might, as far as at least fills in the wrinkles, as you thicken your skin. So I try to put a little humor in that too. So let me give you just a brief thing that we have learned. It's what I refer to as lessons learned since March the 3rd, because it'll put into context much of our thinking, and then I'll get into our plans, and I'll also address some of the rumors that are circulating right now. Here's the big thing that, again, what we know and understand. What is the predicted learning loss due to school closures? Students without access to meaningful instruction after school closures could lose 49% of their potential growth, that's from one year to the next, by the start of the next school year. This amounts to about 5 months of lost learning, and which is a severe setback that would take years to overcome for younger children. You think about grades K through 2, that's the foundation far as your learning, particularly literacy and mathematics. Among middle-income students, there is some decline in average reading levels over any normal summer, but this isn't a normal summer. That's just average. Among students in lower-income households, the decline during a normal summer is accelerated. Now, exacerbate that and double what would we see as a normal summer. That's what we're dealing with. And it doesn't matter if you are a struggling student or an accelerated student. Our practices and our routines, even at home, have changed. And you think about that. Instructional models, things that we know, we need consistency in the implementation of instructional scheduling to promote access and equity. I've stressed this over and over. We do not have equitable access to high-speed internet in this county. That's no one's fault. It's just part of how the market grows and how it's delivered. But the thing is that if we shut our schools down and we go to a straight platform of remote learning, we're going to have huge gaps where nearly 60% of our families are not going to have adequate access that they could even, other than the use of their smartphone, but would not be able to get virtual streaming, which would be part of the process of providing real-time synchronous learning at home. We know that synchronous learning is better. It's real-time. We have looking at the increased access to live teaching experiences needed to reduce the family burden and stress of support student learning. Parents are over being teachers right now. They've told us that. They've suffered more suspensions and expulsions than we've had during a normal school year. They're done. They've also found that some learning experiences are coming into a question as far as they don't know how to go through, as far as a literacy lesson, phonemic awareness, decoding, and fluency, and they don't want to try it. And we understand that. That's what we're trying to do. And there's also an increased need and understanding as far as why social emotional learning opportunities in school are not only important, but need to be accessible if we go to a remote setting. What we're hearing from parents, and again, it doesn't take anyone to figure this out, our kids have been traumatized. Whether they actually experience the tornado or the fear of the tornado. Now think about this, because that was the news. Then moving into a pandemic that many children do not understand, let alone adults. And the fear that has occurred, the thing that we know right now, parents are reaching out to us, tell us what to do. How can we mitigate what our kids are experiencing? First thing, don't let them sit in front of the news. Watch what you're talking about in family conversations. Kids pick up on everything. They pick up on the stress that's happening with mom and dad. They pick up the stress whether mom, is trying to figure and juggle things, if there's a loss of a job, whatever it might be. And our kids are internalizing that. And we are going to be prepared to understand that when we get back into school. The thing too, as far as the communication, no matter how much we put out there, there's always going to be pockets as far as that we didn't hear that, we didn't get that, what is it meant by that, to others that are shopping around other school districts and advising us as far as this is what they're doing, this is. And the thing is, folks, you're going to find inconsistencies all over Tennessee. There's little to no guidance as far as how this is to unfold and roll out, as well as no additional funding other than what's coming out of CARE Act. And that you'll understand why I say that when I get to some of our proposals that we're making. The other thing that we're seeing as far as instructional delivery and practices, as far as how that rolls out, our teachers are just as fearful. They have families too, and we're facing this sort of tension between families saying, you've not been in school since March, you owe us this much. You need to get teachers back in the classroom to do their job. You have that, and again, you have to understand where it's coming from. To those saying that, as far as teachers saying, what are you doing to protect us and make it safe for us in the classroom? We're going to do everything that's possible to mitigate that exposure. The other thing, as far as looking at how we equitably distribute, as far as if we have to go to a complete shutdown to make sure everyone has a device. And, Mark and several of you know this because you've been around since, I came here, started 5 years ago looking at a digital conversion plan as far as to be able to shift the entire district as far as into the new world at that time, and it continues, that we have to familiarize, we need to be able to transition into a technological world. It wasn't to replace teachers, it wasn't to replace textbooks, but that's the world we all live in, and it's a great resource to support instruction and learning anywhere. Time or place becomes irrelevant. We've worked on that for 5 years and we've been shot down because it was too expensive. Well, here we are. No one could have predicted that we would be in this situation. No one. And part of the argument was being, though, we have that stuff at home. Well, you know what? We've got a mishmash of it at home, but we have built up the technology over 5 to 6 years that we are just about there. But the thing is that with that, we also know that you need to be able to know how to provide from a virtual setting as far as instruction. And we found out last spring, even though we were not prepared to even be able to go back in and get devices and things, that many teachers from around the country that had moved into that technological world as far as providing virtual learning, it was an epic failure. It's a big difference between teaching in front of 20 youngsters and have that give and take and the dynamics and the chemistry that takes place in the classroom to sitting in front of a Brady Bunch activity and trying to teach a class. The dynamics are not the same. And so that's part of the thing that we have really invested a lot of training. We're working with teachers right now because we need to be able to transition from a classroom experience to if we have to go home again, because we have no idea how this virus is going to evolve. And we've seen just in the last 2 weeks, folks, and you know this, as far as that we were hopeful that we would see a decline in numbers, and we're not seeing that. We're not seeing that. We're also seeing age groups change as far as the exposure rate. And so we've got to be reflexive and nimble enough that with any of transition, as we look at metrics and measure this, and this is what I'm trying to explain to parents, we might start on August 3rd, but if it's a week before and we're seeing an increase and we are measuring and looking at data every single day, I've got someone that is what he's dedicated to doing. We have to be able to communicate, say, we're going to push back a week. It might be August 10th. We're not going to take the risk, because the thing is that even with buses, 1,000 kids rely on us for bus transportation. And so that's why we can require masks on a bus, because we don't have to provide it. But parents depend on us because they need to go to work. We understand that. So that piece becomes very important as well. We get into the classroom. It's the other thing again. We're trying to make sure that parents understand that we are trying everything we can to go to a normal in-person classroom position, but with huge modifications. It's not going to be what they left last spring. We can't afford that. We can't do that. And that's everything for that increased sanitation, the hygiene, cleaning before, cleaning after. And we're talking about much of it is for what I call hospital grade sanitation. We have to, and it's expensive. But you know what? We can't do anything less than that. It comes down to the question, why are you not requiring masks in the schools? Well, you know what? I can strongly encourage, I can strongly urge, but unless there is a local ordinance, a state or a federal requirement, it's like a dress code violation. And those of you that have been in schools, as far as that we can have dress codes, but you try to monitor it. It's the same thing with masks. We've got also teachers and kids that for health reasons can't wear masks. So we've got all these pieces that we have to take into consideration. And but the thing is, it's not that we're, I don't want to say not prepared, but we have to look at when you have 19,000 kids and the family units that go with them, there's a lot to juggle, a lot to juggle. And so we have looked at every option that we can possibly think of to not only mitigate, but also that if we go into a situation where we have an event in one school, last spring, we would have shut the entire district down. But what we now, as far as that required seating on buses, required seating in the cafeteria with longer lunch periods so that we can have smaller numbers at any time, which I've already had teachers say, but you're going to cut into our instructional time. And I said, well, you know what? I'm sorry. If I can spread out the time that we have lunches set up in schools, smaller numbers, we can have them in quadrants, seating arrangements, because that becomes a tracking mechanism if we have exposure. And I mean, we're putting all those elements in there to make sure that we are doing everything we can, again, to minimize exposure and opportunities to be exposed. And then it comes down to this virtual learning piece. Virtual learning is something that we came up with about 2 weeks ago because of the fear that many parents saying, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I can send my kids to school. Not to be confused as far as a district-wide remote learning process where literally the classrooms go out to the homes. It is one that will meet state requirements. It is one that is, and people have taken offense at this, that it's basic. But ladies and gentlemen, we cannot hire additional teachers. We do not have the funds or the resources. There will be access to our resources that we have, access as far as when they can remote into so they can take part in synchronous lessons. But right now we've got a lot of pushback as far as that we're not offering AP and honors classes. Some of the electives. We can't. This is a temporary measure while we are through this. And then they said, well, and this is something, my phone was blowing up last night. Well, if you're going to go to a remote learning, what's the difference? Remote learning transitions from the class or the school into everyone goes into remote learning. The classroom literally goes into a remote platform. The virtual learning piece that we're doing a semester at a time is to give parents the opportunity to keep their children at home. And here's what they can access as far as we'll provide the device, all that they need. Schools will be in contact with them, but they can't have all that we have in a regular school setting. We just do not have the staffing or the support. As to those AP honors classes, many of your electives that you see in high school, the state does not give us any funds for that, none. When you hear us talk about over and beyond BEP funds, we have over 200 teachers have to pay out of local funds entirely because there is no state funding for that. And that's all of your AP courses, that's all of your honors courses, many of your fine art electives. And so, and I had a mother that was upset with me. She said, well, you need to find the funds. The budget's the budget. We don't have it. But the thing is that as we transition, we're hoping maybe it's going to be better by December, maybe. And everyone comes back into that, into the regular school setting. So I'm sorry for the rambling. I'm sorry for, as far as the, there is so much. And the thing that when I ask about patience and understanding, and maybe a lot of grace as well, no one has figured this out anywhere because it's never happened before. The closest thing that we have to what we're experiencing as a nation, particularly when it comes to instruction, believe it or not, is World War II. We can't even go back to the pandemic or the flu of 1918. We can go back to World War II. And there was something that really resonated. I don't know how many of you read that Tennessee article. Bill Allen, World War II vet that experienced D-Day, lives in Murfreesboro. And he made something that was so striking in the article that when he turned 18, everyone knew, it didn't matter whether you were ready to graduate high school or not, everyone knew that when you turned 18, you immediately joined the armed forces. That was expected. It didn't matter. The same thing with the rationing that was taking place and the things that you had to get coupon books and all the things that happened during World War II. There was a lot of inconveniences, but everyone understood the world's circumstances were different. Well, that's where we are right now. And the thing is that we know, and I shared this many times, and some people took offense at this as well. We know that we need to get school started because we are an economic driver, like it or not. That's what it is. And with that economic driver, people have to feel that they're confident that their children are safe, secure, and being provided an education. And that's something that we've always touted and believed, but there's now these variables that we can't control, and we're doing the very best that we can to make sure that we can get back to that semblance of what used to be, but with huge modifications and understanding. And we've got to get out of that debate as far as that, why are you doing this and you're not doing this, and you need to require a mask, but you're not requiring masks. We need adults to sort of help shape this for us and not take this as a public debate. Because the thing that my biggest fear is that we shut down completely. And there's a ripple effect with all this, ladies and gentlemen, that if we don't get schools up and going, parents cannot go back to work for many of them. And I had someone that I had some teachers that took offense because, like it or not, we're the largest child care provider anywhere, as well as being the largest employer in the county, unless you take into seasonal accounts with Amazon and everything else. So you look at those really important dynamics that we have to be conscious of. And then you have all these other pieces that are circulating with that. And so with that, we are looking at, there's no change in calendar. It's the same calendar that we had as far as a start on August the 3rd. I will continue to put communication out that I'm asking parents as well as the community to pay attention, because we will give enough warning that if we see an uptick in active COVID cases, we will then shift back to August 10th. And the reason being because we have to not only monitor as far as our school population, we have to monitor what's happening in the community as well. The thing is that our teachers are also continuing with their training as far as to be able to transition, and that's a heavy lift, but many of them are they're eager to figure it out, but they're afraid to, and you understand that as well. The other thing that we're asking for patience as far as an understanding that, if there's something that's confusing or you don't understand, reach out to your school. Every school has a unique footprint, every single school. I got smacked the other night with that. It needs to be the same and consistent with every single school. Well, the overall expectations are the same. The design as far as what we're going to provide for students will be there. But every school has a unique footprint. Is everything from how you enter into a school, how you exit, the dynamics as far as each of our high schools have large commons area, as far as how students will not congregate as they used to because we can't allow it, to the thing that we're going to be taking temperatures of everyone coming into the building. Students, it's going to be a daily undertaking. Students coming in, staff coming in, parents coming in. I had a parent took offense to that. Well, you know what? If you want to enter the building, you're going to have your temperature taken. We already have 500 of those instant thermometers in place, ready to go. We have access to over 1 million masks. Think about that, 1 million. Because we know there are going to be instances that, as far as in every, I'm already, in fact, I didn't check all my email this morning, but just, you're going to require masks on buses and it's hot. Do you know how hot it is on a bus? Have you ever? Yes, I've ridden on a bus, and quite recently as well. We'll put the windows down. But the thing is, you don't have to ride the bus. If you're not comfortable with your child being on the bus, bring them to school. It's okay. And that came back with, but I have to be at work at 7 in the morning. Okay, you're gonna have to make some allowances here. The same thing as far as coming into the schools. We've got a group of it started about 5 o'clock yesterday. I've got to give a shout out. We've got some Mount Juliet teenagers that have started a petition. So encouraging and really petitioning Mayor Hutto to require the schools to make them wearing of masks. And I mean, they've been so respectful. Some of the adults that are engaging them are not respectful, but the kids are very respectful. They've sent me over 100 emails already since, I guess, about 7 o'clock last night. And some of them I've answered because I've had the time to go in there and explain the dynamics there. But what I'm asking, model the behavior, model it. You come into the schools with a mask on, guess what happens? People will follow suit. And that's how we do things. Are there going to be hiccups, ladies and gentlemen? Absolutely. Are there going to be things that we didn't anticipate? Oh, yes. I mean, that's just the nature of business. I mean, I'm looking at all of you that are in the business world. I mean, there's things that interrupt your place of work that you didn't anticipate, and it's going to happen as well. I wish we could temper the rumors that are circulating. One that's going on right now that I've had to really work, the sales tax referendum is so gracious to get out there and advocate for, and I appreciate that. The revenue for that sales tax referendum was dedicated to teachers. That's what the voters decided, and that's where it went. And it's circulating right now that because the revenues didn't come in as anticipated, that the teachers will not be receiving anything. That is simply not true. And so if you can help me with that, and if you hear that, we don't know exactly what it will be in, but what we anticipated and projected was $5.2 million. And so you're looking at that raise on top of their level of effectiveness pay that we have in this district. And if you look at it, a level 5 teacher, which we've got a large number in this district that are level 5s, and if they have 20 years or more experience, they look at getting not only $1,100 for their level of effectiveness, but $5,000 on top of that as a pay increase. If the revenue do not come in as what we anticipate, and again, you look at the economy, what we will do is 70% of projections up until December. And if the revenue, in which we're starting to get some numbers that might be a little encouraging, we will go back retroactively to make that. But either way, they get a substantial pay raise August the 15th. That's the first payroll. So if you hear that, please help me. Because the teachers are fearful, and we've had people posting as far as, well, this is how we're going to lose our teachers again. Well, you know what? Every district's in the same situation. Our teachers, we have a great retention of teachers, regardless of what's being placed out there, because our teachers, and when you look at levels of effectiveness, 92% of our teachers are levels 3s or better. That's incredible. But you also see the outcomes we're getting with our students as well. So there's a correlation. So again, I'm sorry that this is so, I think, did I only have 30 minutes, Mark? Usually I can talk for 2 hours, I can't hear you.
My apologies. You know those people that you invite to a party at 6 o'clock because they're going to get there till 7?
Yeah.
We told you 30 minutes because of your passion and candidness, but we were prepared for 45. So
Okay.
it is, I think everyone would agree, your openness and candidness and being straight to the point is much appreciated. I would like to add that with that sales tax, each of us on this call and thousands and thousands of other people can have a direct impact on that, because the sales tax that is collected locally with our local businesses in Wilson County having a direct impact on the revenue stream for those raises. So if you are committed to giving the teachers all that they can get, think twice, shop local, spend your money where your heart is. And I just want to ask a couple of quick questions. Some of us that don't have children in the school, I know that one thing that I think is going to be really important for folks to know, and I speak to those as well that are on here today who may have staff that have kids in the school. If a particular school sees a spike and you need to make a 2-week adjustment, that, unlike the snow days that we have in the past, that will affect, as I understand it, that particular school and not countywide. Is that correct?
Exactly. And Mark, that's a great question, because again, I remember what I said, that we would look at an individual school unless we had hotspots that were populating across the district. And part of that transition that I was referencing, as far as how we would transition, and the teachers will know this, parents will have notice by Thursday at 4 o'clock. And see, what we were telling parents originally, that the transition would be Friday at 4 o'clock as we collected data and we knew where these hotspots populating. Parents came back and said, well, that doesn't give us enough time. So we've pushed it back to Thursday. We understood that, and that means that on Friday, get your devices, get everything you're going to need, because you're going to be home for 2 weeks. The state's giving us an allowance, Mark, with that, because it's unlike snow days where we would use stockpile days so we wouldn't have to go back and finish at the end of the year or whatever. that as long as we can show that transition that, you know, devices go home, instruction is going to go on as far as from that individual classroom teacher to students, because that school shut down, that counts as days in school.
I see.
We very deliberately worked on that. And in addition to that, I'm asking forgiveness from the Commissioner of Education as far as that. Let's say that I have to push August 3rd out to August 10th. That I don't have to keep asking for a waiver each time if we have to make an adjustment to the existing calendar, if I have to add on the back end or whatever. And so that allowance is going to be given, and that becomes really important right now, because the flexibility of trying to maneuver 22 campuses and making sure that we're not doing a complete shutdown, which can really, I mean, and you all know what happened even last spring. But we've got a pretty good communication set up. It sounds confusing, and it will be confusing the first time that we have to go into that, but we're going to over communicate that everyone take that deep breath. It'll be okay, you know, and we transition. And so thanks for the question.
Well, as you talk about communicating, the parents, the business folks, this has an impact on them as well. And I know everyone's appreciative and thankful for you taking time out of, this may be a refreshing break from what it sounds like you're going to get to go back to on your computer, but this means a lot to us, and we're appreciative of it. One thing I was thinking about as you went along, now more than ever, and you may not know what they are, but community partnerships with businesses in town. One thing that has been pretty obvious is not everyone has equal access to broadband. And there could be, whether those are unused offices, meeting rooms, maybe it's not just the students, it could be teachers as well that want to work on a lesson plan, but for whatever reason, everybody in the neighborhood's on at the same time. I hope you'll keep your the opportunities in front of us for businesses that want to help, whatever that help might. It's not always money. It could just be access to other resources.
Thank you.
I hope you'll keep us in mind.
And let me add to that, because something that we did, and it was an experiment. Watertown area has some, you know, I don't want to say remote areas, but they have some areas back in those hollers that you can't get a signal or whatever. And, you know, and everyone thinks that we're talking about economically disadvantaged. We're talking about people that live on the lake right now that do not have access other than through that Hughes satellite or whatever. Nevertheless, we did an experiment at Watertown Middle School and created a hot parking lot at the school itself, as far as that it was open to the community, families, whatever, that they could come and have access to high-speed internet. Of course, it has our filters on it, but they could either, you know, download, access whatever they needed to. And it was a wonderful experiment that turned out well. There were some, I guess, some comments as far as, what do you know what everyone's doing out in that parking lot? Are they accessing the right things? Well, I said, you know what, if they're going to come out publicly like that, I doubt they're going to be going somewhere they shouldn't be going, and it's going to be blocked. The thing was that we opened it up to the community, but there was a lot of kids sitting in the cars doing work as well. So as of that, we have worked hard with partners and others. We're going to be able to create a hotspot at every campus parking lot. By the time school starts is what we're shooting for, but we think we have every school covered that from, and we'll post the hours from like 3 on until evening, that we're opening up to community and families, particularly those that are on that that are choosing that virtual learning this next semester, where they can download, because they might be able to, they might not have that opportunity going home, but they can download, access. We've got a whole learning management platform that any parent can go in and pull resources from. So thanks for bringing that up, because I forgot to add that. That's new, hot off the press as of last Friday.
I heard you mentioning it on the radio yesterday morning, and you know, these are forced opportunities. We, as you mentioned, when you first came, we were talking about the virtual education and the resources we were going to need, and there was money. There was some money put to it, but clearly not enough. And this has really unmasked, if you will, a lot of the weaknesses, the holes in the in our planning, we will end up being better for this one of these days. We will probably be able to find a way to maybe our buildings aren't used as much as they were before, and we can have more of those resources going to the AP and honors classes. I think you're trying to bite it, the elephant one bite at a time, and I appreciate all of the work that you are doing, something that's probably near and dear and on our minds here. Some of us are, we drive past Stoner Creek, West Wilson Middle School, and Green Hill High School multiple times a day. Can you just share with us real quick an update on the status of those?
Yeah, and remind everyone, we lost 2,000 devices with the destruction of those two schools. So that, to give you an idea as far as what we're working with. I know that there's been a lot of what I refer to as sidewalk engineers that have been very concerned why they've not seen anything happen. And the process, when you're looking at the magnitude of both schools, everything from adjusters, everything from site engineers, everything from looking at national organizations that are looking at what they could do to recover first as opposed to having to replace. And so there's a lot of work there, but we're looking at an $85 million project. And we are so fortunate. This is the only school district I've ever been in that had insured their buildings. I've never had that experience before. So, it's one of those that, because how many buildings burned down? Well, here's a district that had the foresight. So it's about $85 million. We're wrapping up as far as those final negotiations with the insurance companies. They're going to start on Stoner Creek first, behind, for those of you that aren't aware, and look at beginning that replacement. They're talking anywhere from a 14 to 16 month project, and with both schools, because you're going to have building simultaneously. The thing is that, and again, I know it's a hardship, but we could not put kids in a Kmart or any of the other things and the tent cities and all the other recommendations that have come forward. But we are looking at, as far as their separation of wings, the kids that are going to be at Mount Juliet High School. You're talking about West Wilson 7th and 8th graders, as far as it's a natural transition, and then Mount Juliet Middle School 7th and 8th graders being at Green Hill, and the opportunities and experiences that they'll have there. And then Mount Juliet Middle School will house the K through 6, and all the logistics, the protocols, and and that's a word, that's another sensitive word. I found out that parents do not like the word protocols. I have too many protocols. Well, you have to have protocols, folks. These are the new business rules during this time that is not normal. And so those are the things that right now are happening in each of our schools, as far as building those logistics, as far as movement of kids, where they, congregation and everything. It's going to change dramatically, and it should. And hopefully it'll be temporary. But here's the thing that I will tell all of you: education will not go back to what it used to be. It can't. It simply can't. And looking at what we've experienced, I think CS is getting better. This is a high-performing district that is in the top 5% of the state. I can't say that enough. It doesn't happen by accident. It's because of the faculty, the people that make it work. As Mark alluded to, we're not compromising our AP and honors classes. The community's already said that they value that. And so in a normal school structure, that doesn't get diminished, Mark, in any way. But in this temporary measure of virtual learning, not the remote learning, but virtual learning, that parents just cannot step into that classroom, we can't offer the full cafeteria. Our high schools have over 300 course offerings. Think about that. Over 125 CTE classes, over 28 AP classes. So think about the volume of that catalog that our high school students have opportunities. And I'm sorry that we can't offer everything, because all this is temporary, particularly the virtual piece, until we can figure out when things come back. And but I appreciate the support. I appreciate many of you that send me the notes. Candy, I might need some help on the hair because I'm losing it. But the thing is, thank you so much. And don't hesitate to reach out to me. And if you see something that, what in the world is she talking about? call me, let me know and everything. And, you know, and I get emotional about this. I can't help it. That's just the nature of who I am. I care about what I do. I care about this school district. I care about our kids. And so, you know, I tell people that we're doing the best that we can, and I've been told that that's not good enough, but that's all I can offer. And I don't care to share that my faith is very important, and there's not a day that it's not through prayer or guidance, because this is tough, and we've got to take care of our kids. They're suffering. If you've not kept up with the statistics locally, Middle Tennessee, there's a dramatic increase in domestic assault, child abuse, alcohol, and I could go on and on. And so it really frightens me to think that what some of our kids are experiencing, and they need to be in school.
I think nothing touches everyone in the community in any town USA more than the education system. And there's not one person in the county that hasn't been impacted to some degree or another since the morning of March the 3rd. And we appreciate you. Dennis, tell us real quick, Green Hill High School, you get the keys, we cut the ribbon by the end of August, September?
Well, Green Hill High School will open on August the 3rd. And Mark, that's a good question. We don't know that we're going to do cut the ribbon and everything, because because Green Hill High School was not to be opened as far as a 7th through 12th grade. So we might do the delay on that. We walked through yesterday. The building is going to really be able to embrace that 7th and 8th grade very well as well. But we'll open with about 2,000 students, and that's including that 7th and 8th grade. We got some really good news yesterday as far as the JROTC units that are coming in. They're bringing a full-fledged STEM program as part, and that's something that's new as far as an ROTC program. State of the art, you know, as far as, and the first question comes up, will we have football? Well, you know, we're going to have the fields and everything, but we're going to have to wait to see what TSSAA says. We are allowed for conditioning, but we can't have any contact yet. And so I had a parent tell me that I snickered the other night at the board meeting when I was talking about football, and that I didn't value it. And I'm sitting there thinking, really? For some kids, that's the only reason they come to school. And so I do value it. The one thing that we probably will not be ready will be the baseball and not the soccer fields, baseball and softball at Green Hill. But I think you all will be very proud. We continue to be criticized that we overbuilt. Folks, we have 425 more kids enrolled in this district than what we ended with on March the 3rd.
There probably won't be any slowdown, because the things that are happening around us is making Wilson County even more attractive. We'll try to hold off the high school students driving into Green Hills until the stoplight can get moved.
Yeah.
That up a little bit. Shannon asked what virtual learning might look like. They're prepared for 4 to 6 hours of home learning, but what does the experience really look like from a parent's perspective?
Well, from a parent's perspective, again, you know, it's one of those things that, and I don't want to say that we're building it as we go, but we're building the catalog of accessibility from kindergarten through your senior year of high school. There's no other district that's really put this together, because we talked about this the other night, and one of my supervisors said, well, Dr. Wright said that this is something we need to consider. And it was one that we're building it, but it's things that not only will it be the device, and we have to have assurance from the parent that they have adequate access to internet. The second thing, Mark, is that we're, particularly for K through 8, that what we call a learning coach at home, a parent, a guardian, whomever, that's going to supervise what you know, they're accessing and going through the learning module. We've got learning, what we call remote learning guides, that are grade level appropriate or course appropriate, that will give guidance to that. We will have access to synchronous real time, where they can go into a classroom as far as for guidance as well, which it doesn't put the responsibility on that classroom teacher, because they already have a full load. but they have access as far as coming into the classroom, and we will have timetables and scheduling, because that student will be tied to their zone school. It's not like they're going to be shopping across the district and trying to figure out. And so all this will be shared at parent orientation, which for those that are signing up will have to go through that to understand how to navigate. We'll have what I refer to as 24/7 support. We're also putting together, and this is for all parents, a parent university. And it's going to be phases and stages, because there's so much, Mark, that parents don't, I'll get calls as far as, my child's forgot their login and their password. Okay, I don't know it. But I can tell you who you can get to. Well, we're going to put that together, as well as how parents can get into our learning management system, go into the body of resources for whatever content is, get into Discovery Ed, get into tutorials. We've got a really robust math program right now called ALEC. Our teachers absolutely love it. We introduced it early spring, and it's one of those things that teachers says, please don't take this away, but it's also accessible to parents. It's great from everything from foundational math skills for those of you that have forgotten the operations for multiplication, division of fractions. And it also goes all the way up as far as every level of math. And it's user-friendly. Parents are that have been dabbling in it with us right now like it, because it's refreshing their math skills. So there's a lot of resources that will be available, and we'll get that information out there. And I'll have to say that there's some other districts that are wanting to know if they can access our learning management system too, because they don't have anything quite like what our teachers and administrators have put together for parent and teacher access. Our teachers have built some really incredibly strong learning modules, as far as, again, that are standards based, because here's the thing I didn't address either. The state's requiring us to turn in a continuous learning plan, every district, on July the 24th, that covers every option. And there's some accountability in this, as far as even taking into account as far as those students that choose not to do anything. We've got to make sure that we locate them. And there's going to be some kids and some families that are choosing not to learn virtually, not come back to school, and thinking they're going to disappear. And we've got to make sure that we don't lose those kids. So a lot.
Tasks.
It's like the Sears catalog right now, Mark.
A little bit of everything.
Too young to remember the Sears catalog.
Oh no, I remember before the Sears catalog. Green stamps at the gas station. Julie,
Oh, yeah.
Julie's still here. Marla said she had a question.
I do. Hey, Dr. Wright. Hey, first, I just want to say thank you for keeping us updated all summer, with little tidbits of information, because that's been very helpful, I think, as we parents try to plan and think about what's happening. And I will say that our county has done a much better job of that continuous communication than my child's college has. So kudos to our district for that. I know we are expecting plans from each individual school on their specific reopening plans. And I just had a question about, so if a child tests positive in a specific classroom, and that classroom then is required, obviously I'm assuming it would somehow be communicated to the other students that were in that classroom with them. They've been exposed, if that particular classroom group is required to stay home and quarantine for 14 days, but maybe not the entire school, then is that classroom going to move to a virtual learning for that 2 weeks while maybe the remainder of the school continues traditional? Or is that something that we're going to get more details about in our individual plans?
Yes, and it's one that, again, working with not only the local but also the state health department, because again, we're getting a lot of their thinking that, we really used a sledgehammer last spring for something that, but again, no one really understood the magnitude, and so everything was shutting down. But it depends on grade level too, as Julie, because in an elementary school, you're already minimizing as far as exposure. If you're in a high school, there's a class change and different opportunities. So what we would do as far as the tracking piece, what is the exposure? Do we have as far as, is it just a family member or is it the student or even the teacher? So everything will be, case sensitive as far as how widespread, but not only the notification, but it's also the thing that we're going to be private about. We're not going to identify, but we will say that there was the possibility of the exposure. This is the what we will do, and make sure that there's notification, and that as everyone that will, whether it's the classroom or whether it's school-wide, it'll be a 2-week quarantine, and with parents being able to go to a site to get updated information, because it might be that we are experiencing other exposures. And that's where we're going to have to trust the community, that if there's something that's going on at home or something like that, please let us know. Because the notification, we've got to be sensitive to privacy, but we've also got to make sure that we're responsible to those as well, as far as exposures. The question that also came out, I was asked if we're going to require to test a COVID test all 19,000 students. No, we're not doing that. That's I can't even imagine trying to even do that. But the thing is, I have to tell parents that even if we did it on the first day of school, we don't know that they're not going to be exposed 2 weeks later. And so this is where that responsibility thing comes in place, that, don't tempt fate, folks. Be smart. We had people at the very beginning say, well, I don't know anyone that's been sick, and no one in my family's sick. Well, now some of those people that were making those boasts are saying that no one's exempt. But part of it is we got to be smart. And, you think common sense that you wash your hands. No. If you've ever been in an airport restroom and watched the people walk out without washing their hands, yeah. I won't go into details, but I'll leave your imagination to that.
Most of us have already had breakfast, so that's a good thing, thinking about that. But Dr. Wright, I believe you'll be part of a unified message ask. We're seeing counties, dominoes are starting to fall with decisions being made and mandates being put down. Some are taking a little bit different approach than others. This afternoon, I know you'll be part of a press release that
Yes.
Mayor Hutto has put together to show a unified message, to basically not tempt fate, understanding that if you can't stay 6 feet apart, then do the socially responsible thing and not, as you said, tempt fate. So folks can be watching for that. I believe it's at 2:00 this afternoon.
Yes, it is, at the WEMA Training Center.
And we have run way past time, but this, I think we
I'm
could.
sorry.
No, I think it could go on all day. We should have probably scheduled a little bit more time. I don't know if Rob Porter's on here or not, but if he is, happy birthday. Shannon.
Birthday, Rob.
Yeah, Shannon Bryce, 13 years today. Happy anniversary. Lucky 13 in the year 2020. So, Candy, you're just itching for 10 seconds, Candy. Go ahead.
Unmute.
Okay, there we go. Just real quick, Donna, I don't know, and I messaged you, but I realized you may be like covered up, but I don't know and I don't want to put you on the spot here, but
Go ahead.
Is there the product that I have that I've actually been an owner of this product, and I'm a distributor for a product called Aseptic Health, and it's a non-toxic, non-corrosive spray, which has been great for helping for people that have upper respiratory issues. It's not like the bleach that has all the chemicals in it that can, cause even more problems, especially kids that may have asthma. Who do I talk to, or how do I get in to at least talk to somebody about this product, bring the information? We're CDC certified, we're NSF certified, just to see if that might be a product that you guys can use. And I can also get sprayers and foggers and show you guys how to use those. I think that would be extremely effective, because I've been doing so many businesses already.
And that's actually what we're doing right now, Kenny. In fact, we're using electrostatic guns as far as,
yes.
we're using hospital grade as far as sanitizers and cleansing,
Right.
everything. In schools, individual schools do not purchase, except, you know how teachers always, bring in the Clorox wipes, which you can't get anymore, and stockpile. But the thing is that, certainly meet with our finance director, who is also the purchasing agent, and let him see, because here's the thing that we also know: there is a shortage it's been very quiet around the country right now, but there's a lot of districts that right now cannot get access to any kind of sanitizers because businesses and hospitals are the first buyers, and school districts are almost secondary in other states, which I find strange. But so candy, absolutely. And the other thing I would also, with some of the surrounding districts, I would also reach out to their purchasing agents, because they're reaching out to us wanting to know, where are you getting your inventory? Where are you accessing? So I would highly recommend that, because these are strange times right now.
Well, and the great thing about it is, you know, we actually have our own production. So we're producing it ourselves, but we're a nationwide product. It's not just here. But the other thing about it is we're actually working with the ESSER fund to get certified on that as well. But we are a hospital grade disinfectant too. So we're working on getting that with that, because mostly I've dealt with private schools. So this is where I'm trying to, you know, find a way that I can get this product in front of the right people. So if you would message me, like somebody's email, I don't even know where to start.
Okay, and like I said, please reach out to, and I will refer to them as the purchasing agents in the other districts, and particularly the smaller ones that don't buy the volume. I mean, you know, we're the ninth district out of 145 districts, so with the volume is huge. But you've got a lot, particularly in Middle Tennessee, that don't know what to do right now.
Right, and that's how we're selling them in drums right now. It's 55-gallon drums. It's the only way we can produce them. So.
Candy, the folks that are on here, they had that works for business too, everybody. So Juliet, last question, will the press conference be aired live? I will find out about that. I think
it is. That's what I was told. Yeah.
And
you know, and
we'll post it on.
I add to everyone too, that folks, if there's something particularly, I can't tilt at windmills. There's so many rumors out there that and that people, I've had several mothers that are almost on borderline hysteria because they've heard or read something on social media, and some of it belies all, you know, believability, but that's what it is. There's something out there that you see, either help me or at least let me know, because sometimes I don't even know where to turn, because I'll get information and say, so-and-so is being, you know, circulated. Is this true? Well, no, and some of it's so absurd. But when you're in this state of crisis anywhere, in chaos, people's sensibility, really smart people, tend to, well, you know, I don't hear anything from the school system. They're not saying it. We don't follow all those pages of social media. And so I need help. Kevin Sanders, you're grinning on me, but you know what I mean.
You're among friends that want to help. Yeah. How's that?
Yeah. I'm going to need some help, because some of it's like, I can't fight this, because it doesn't even make sense, but they're putting it out there. And so 5 or 6 complaints I received last week. I went in and checked emails. Number 1, they were not parents of students in our district. And 2, that present themselves as employees. You know, we've got 2,500 employees in this district, certified and classified staff. They weren't employees of our district, but they presented themselves as they were making their complaint, that they worked for the school system, and they did not. So just to give you an idea of the magnitude.
I field a lot of questions from other parents, and I try to.
And I thank you for that. Thank you.
and as a high school parent, the main thing right now, I think a lot of people are really nervous about just the schedule change, you know, from the 4x4 to the 8, because a lot of us, you know, had prerequisite classes, and we know the guidance counselors aren't back for a few days yet still. And I just prayers for our guidance counselors, because they're going to have a lot of scheduling to work with, a whole lot of scheduling.
And Julie, with that, you know, as far as that's where the grace is. And let me give you an idea on that, AB, because I am the queen of block scheduling. In fact, I'll take some of the credit. When it was introduced in Tennessee in 1992, some before you were born, I was part of that, brought it into East Tennessee. And so I say that because that, just the ability of how you schedule. Block scheduling is how you manage time. That's all it is. The AB still has the volume of classes, but we're going to go all year long with that reverse. And and for some kids, it's going to be a benefit. The thing is, if we go into another uptick or surge, think about what happened under block scheduling when we had to end a semester in the middle of it. That was like missing a half a year under that block. With this, and it's not saying we won't go back to block, but while we're in this temporary chaotic mess, if we have a delay, let's say that we're after 2, we're going to be okay because it's a year long, and AP test, it doesn't matter what schedule on, AP tests are always in May. Doesn't matter if you finish the course in December, it's in May. So there's benefits, but the thing is, it was looking at the magnitude of what happens if we go into another pandemic, because there was serious loss, particularly kids that were in upper division math and science classes, and it ended in March. That's the reasoning behind it. And pray for your guidance counselor. That's right, because their ratio is 450 to 1.
Thank you for everything y'all are doing. I mean, I could not imagine being in your shoes right now.
I just want to stay married. 47 years, I want to stay married.
We appreciate everyone, especially you, Dr. Wright. Thank you. We spoke with Pam, Marta did, and I believe that we're going to try to get this on the calendar as a regular update, as long as this and not being able to see each other in person as often. Thank you for what you're doing. I hope you'll lean on us if
Absolutely. You just don't, being thankful is not enough, but just know that you are appreciated, and more than you'll ever know.
well, we will see you this afternoon. Blessings.
Okay.
We're adjourned.
With my mask.
With
Bye.
your mask. That's right.